What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I'm joined by two of the greats in this industry, Jurg and Dame. Fellas, how are we this week?
Doing well. Nothing new here. Getting better at golf. That's a little update. But other than that, same old shit.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, lads. It's always a good day to record. It's a little bit, gray, dreary outside, but it's always sunshine and rainbows when it comes to recording this podcast. The best sports podcast out there in the landscape of media.
No lies told, Jurg. No lies told. You're right. It is a little gloomy outside, a little rainy. But yeah, it's not a weather podcast. It's a sports podcast. I do want to give a quick shout out to Bars, who filled in for me and Dame last week. Jurg, you and him killed it as always. A little bit of a MLB update post trade deadline. I heard his Mets rant, and I agreed 100%. I felt him on a personal level. But yeah, baseball, man. What is it? It's the midway point, right? Are we?
Yeah, just after the midway point, a little bit after that. At this point, like we're well over every single team at this point has played over 100 games at this juncture. So it's just getting through well over 100 games, really. So now it's just waiting to see how everything shakes up. And like this, I don't remember if I said this on the show last week. I may have like made a brief mention of it in passing, but I truly believe like we are potentially in store for the best finish to a baseball season that I think we've had in a very long time. We have a bunch of divisions that are still very much like up for grabs at this point, which is like sometimes rare, and we still have uh like the wild card races. For my money, I think this is the best wild card race that Major League Baseball has seen in the modern era. Like you have a bunch of like really good teams, really competitive teams duking it out. A lot of those teams made moves to add and bulk up at the deadline, being very aggressive. A lot of teams went under the "we're going to go for it" mentality this season, and you love to see that in a sport like this.
That's a bold claim. Dame, would you agree? Take your, defeatist attitude about the Yankees aside. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Baseball just doesn't interest me anymore. It just defeats me. So I could care less.
So the defeated
Yeah, like you just ignored what I said, but
so,
whatever.
Yeah,
so
I don't
so
really care what you say.
so Chris, as to why I say it, if you look at the AL wild card right now, the three teams that hold wild card spots are the 69 win Rays, nice, the 66 win Astros, and the 65 win Toronto Blue Jays. You also have a 62 win Seattle Mariners team that's still competing, and you have teams in the Yankees, Angels, and Red Sox that are all 1 to 2 wins away from 60. And then in the NL, you have the Phillies, who were last season's NL champions. You have the San Francisco Giants, who are having 62 wins. You have the Marlins, who this is the best. This is probably the best this team has been through 100 plus games in well over a decade at this point. And then you have the Cubs at 59 wins, the Reds at 60 wins, the Diamondbacks and Padres are still trying to compete. Like this, and none of these teams are giving up on the season, which is the big thing. All these teams, even the ones that are a couple games back of wild card spots, they didn't sell at the deadline. They're fully they were all in on buying. So this is a very entertaining end to the season. I think we're in store for.
All right. Baseball needs it. I'm happy to hear that. I'll definitely be checking some of the games out as we wind down towards the end of the regular season. Yeah, like probably like a month and a half, 2 months away from the actual MLB playoffs, right?
Yes, sir.
So here for it. But yeah, we talked about baseball last week. 2 weeks ago, we talked about football. This week, we're going to be talking about the NBA. That's right, some basketball talk. And you know what? Maybe just, kind of round out, the sweep here. Maybe hockey next week. We'll see. It's up to Jurg. But NBA dominated episode this week. Kind of a free-for-all discussion here. We're just going to be talking about, what happened in the offseason. I know we talked about some moves that occurred, but I mean, I guess this is kind of like a catch-up episode. We'll kind of talk about like possible winners, possible losers, things from teams that we like, things from teams that we didn't like. We'll be all over the place, East and West. Obviously, some teams were more active than other teams. Some teams haven't made moves at all. Some teams are rebuilding. Some teams are trying to edge towards a championship. Some teams are at a stalemate because just, nothing's kind of happening on the trade front for specific players that we'll definitely talk about. So, yeah, kind of a free-for-all discussion. I'll bring up some teams. I'll bring up some moves. You guys could jump in, bring up something that I may have missed. So, yeah, we're good for it. I'm just going to assume we're all good for it. Fellas, where do we want to start? Let's actually start with the Boston Celtics, fellas, because I heard, and I don't know, like I didn't see a follow-up report, but I believe Porzingis, who the Celtics traded Marcus Smart for. I mean, the Celtics were part of a 3-team deal that landed Porzingis, so he's on the Celtics now. I believe he's missing the rest of the World Cup because of a foot issue. I don't know the seriousness behind the injury. Hopefully it's not anything crazy, but the fact that he's missing the whole World Cup, maybe it's a precautionary thing. But guys, I'm a little concerned because that's kind of red flag. We all know the issues with KP, injuries and fatigue being a few of them. So the fact that this is kind of like happening like right before training camp starts is kind of suspect. If it's a cautionary thing, I get it, but uh, like he's a big dude, man, and the fact that he's already had knee issues, the fact that he's having some foot issues now, not ideal, not ideal. Guys, I want to ask you: do you think the Celtics will regret making this deal for KP?
Ooh.
I don't think so. I think it was basically a steal when they got him. I forgot. I think they like traded away Marcus Smart
They did land 2 first rounders, I
and got
believe.
two first round picks with KP, which is it just doesn't make sense to me how that trade even occurred. Like, what was the logic going on there? But I think KP I think this team was very stagnant in the way that like their offense was. Like it was literally Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and like you just kick it out to shooters. They didn't have any big down low to whether post up or kind of space the floor. And now you have KP who just adds a different dynamic to that offense. He obviously can space the floor. He could face up on the elbow, or he can drive past. He could dribble the ball. He's obviously 7'3", so he's by default a rim protector as well. Something that outside of Robert Williams they lacked. So I think that, and the fact that they got 2 first round picks, I just don't see any possible way that they regret this trade. It will be very interesting if KP is going to be healthy. Obviously, that's been like a, a common theme throughout for him throughout his entire career is him staying healthy. And that, I mean, that comes with it when you're like a 7'3", kind of skinny, lengthy guy like that. Most guys that size don't stay healthy often, but I really liked it for the Celtics when they did it, and I still like it now. I mean, even if you get 55, 60 games out of him in the regular season, but as long as he's healthy in the playoffs and he can take a little bit of load off of Tatum and Brown, kind of give that a different look to opposing defenses by having a big who can actually score the ball on 3 different levels. That's where I think that it's really going to benefit them come playoff time.
Yeah, I'm with Dame. And I don't know if they'll necessarily ever regret this trade at some point. I just think, will this trade pay dividends for the most important time of the year for the Celtics? The Celtics made this trade for the playoffs because at the end of the day, the Miami Heat in this conference finals and when these two teams met years ago in the bubble, Jimmy and Bam can get to the rim at will. Even Caleb Martin was doing that to end the series. You have an Eastern Conference that features Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks, and you have a Philadelphia 76ers team. Yes, I know they beat them again in this postseason, but they have Joel Embiid. And we can say what we want about Joel Embiid. We have made it evidently clear how we feel about Embiid on this show, but he is still, at this point, the reigning defending MVP, and the dude can score inside outside. You needed a more mobile big man that can help cause pressure on guys that drive and then could, in the case of at least Embiid, could have a chance with guarding him at the perimeter and it wouldn't necessarily kill your defense. Or Porzingis can just stay inside and someone else can handle Embiid on the perimeter. Porzingis is there for the defensive versatility, and that I was thinking this while Dane was speaking. You just need one game in each series from Porzingis to where he actually pops off for like 25, 30 points.
Yep.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be the consistent third option because I think there's still other guys on this team that should have as of a more of a third option. Malcolm Brogdon is like the main name that comes to mind for that. But I think if you're Boston, you traded for Porzingis for the playoffs. I don't know if you're going to regret that. I think all it will be is just, is he going to show up the way you want him to? I think that's the question because like Dame was saying, this team became stagnant and Marcus Smart was a big part of that. I know some Celtics fans would be like, but he won the defensive player of the year and he was shooting really good for a good 2-year stretch. Yeah, 2 years and that was it. Basically, ever since 2021, Marcus Smart's shooting has regressed to what it was at the midway point of his career, which is relatively reliable. But if he's shooting 7, 8 threes a game, that's going to cost you basketball games in the playoffs. You don't want Marcus Smart shooting that many threes for you. And I think ultimately it was a needed move to switch things up. And again, they needed Porzingis' skill set in there, especially, we could say and meme about him as much as we want, but losing Grant Williams in the RFA process as well, you lose a big on that team that can help stretch the floor. And really all that was left on this team that could shoot from the big man spot was Al Horford. You need more than that. especially old man Al Horford. So I don't think they'll regret this trade. I just think the bigger question is, will this trade pay the dividends they want it to, which is at the end of the day winning a championship, and that's a sight remains to be seen.
All right, I kind of want to talk about this team since a few days ago, actually. The Toronto Raptors, this franchise, this team, pisses me the fuck off. And Masai Ujiri is a big reason for that. Now, I don't know if you guys read, but The Athletic, Shams primarily, came out with an article. Pascal Siakam is in trade rumors. Kind of like, I don't know what they're doing necessarily, but apparently the Atlanta Hawks are interested in Pascal Siakam, and they offered a package. I think it was along the lines of a few draft picks, AJ Griffin, and DeAndre Hunter. And I believe it was said that the Raptors, Masai Ujiri, wanted more apparently than what was offered. What, bro? This is I don't understand. The logic here. I don't know if you're gonna get a better package than what the Hawks offered. Maybe you will, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just higher on DeAndre Hunter than most. And I also like AJ Griffin a lot. And then two first rounders or something like that. That's a pretty decent package, man. But these dudes are so greedy and they want to be the smart. Well, Masai Ujiri wants to be the smartest dude in the room. And it's just like, bro, you have lost Kyle Lowry for nothing. You have lost Fred VanVleet for nothing. With the way you're handling Siakam and OG Anunoby in terms of just like trade packages and all that, the fact that you want like a king's ransom for both these players who don't warrant a king's ransom, you're likely gonna lose at least one of them for nothing again, because I'm pretty sure that OG Anunoby's gonna he has a player option next year. He's gonna opt out of it. He has a lot of suitors. I'm pretty sure that he's gonna test free agency. They're probably gonna lose him for nothing, man. I don't understand Masai Ujiri's logic. The fact that you're losing your best players for nothing, dude. You're looking like the biggest loser in the room. I don't understand this. Well, what are we doing here? Maybe obviously Siakam is an all-star, so maybe you think there's a better package out there. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I have not seen it so far. I've seen no reports. And the Hawks, I think, are the strongest suitor for him. For the Hawks, I kind of understand, it's kind of like going all in because, I mean, they're kind of stuck in, near purgatory. They're close to it, bro. And Trae Young and DeJounte Murray isn't getting it done. They just traded John Collins, I believe. So they need to make moves too, bro, because it's not looking good. They don't have they kind of traded a few assets for DeJounte Murray. I believe they're trying to trade the remaining assets left for that third star, and apparently they think it's Siakam, who I think would be a pretty decent fit next to Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. So I kind of understand their logic for going for a third star, but I don't know what the Raptors are doing. I think by the end of next season, we're going to know a lot about the Toronto Raptors, for good or for bad. It seems like Scotty Barnes is their guy going forward. Apparently he's been untouchable in any trade talks. I guess I like Scotty Barnes as a player. He looks like a turd, I'm not going to lie. But as a player, I think he's good. They view him a lot more highly than I think a lot of people do. But, I mean, that's their guy. They drafted him, so I guess it makes sense. But, fellas, what do we make of the Toronto Raptors and the way they do business? Jurg, help me out here. Are you as low on them as I am? Because Masai Ujiri is going to be pissed off.
Yes, after seeing that report, I am more than willing to say we don't really have a winners or losers thing that we're concretely discussing this episode, but I think if we had to state a loser of this offseason, I think the Toronto Raptors you could argue is one of the top 3 losers of the offseason. This is a middling team that barely made the play-in last year, that choked their play-in game against the Chicago Bulls, and has done absolutely nothing to improve their roster going into this season. And after seeing that Pascal Siakam Atlanta Hawks rumor that they've been declining offers, at this point, it's like you said, Chris, you're going to lose him for nothing. And I understand, and this is the problem with the discourse on NBA media, on NBA Twitter as a whole, which is why I sometimes try to just avoid it at all costs, because holy hell, some of you human beings are toxic wastelands equivalent to Chernobyl. But I think Ujiri is trying to get the trade for Siakam that the Utah Jazz stupidly did with Gobert, or not Utah, excuse me, the Timberwolves stupidly did with Gobert last season. I think the thing that people need to understand is that there is going to be a reset of the trade market for all-star caliber players. you're not going to get 4 first-round picks and 2 or 3 pick swaps for Pascal Siakam. It was a stupid trade that was done for Rudy Gobert. That's going to be the outlier. That's not going to be the new standard that is set for a player of this star level. Pascal Siakam's a good player. He's an all-star caliber player. Atlanta does need a new power forward that's a better fit next to Trae Young and DeJounte Murray than what John Collins was, because as we know, they cap dumped him over to Utah, which God bless his soul for having to live there for a couple of years. But they need a guy next to their guards, and I think Siakam could actually fit really well in Atlanta. I think he has a skill set that really does complement Siakam. No, excuse me. I think Siakam has the skill set to complement Trae and DeJounte, but he's playing super hard to get. And you have to think of Siakam. He's a guy who I think is also entering the last year of his contract, so he's going to be on an expiring deal. He could probably test free agency next year and get a good chunk of change. So this is an all-star caliber player who's on the final year of a contract where he can opt out of, that we don't even know if it's a guarantee that he would even re-sign in Atlanta immediately or if he would want to wait it out. Like, the Hawks are not going to give up heaven and earth for a guy that's barely even worth one continent. It's not happening. So I don't blame Atlanta for standing firm of, we're not going to overpay for a guy if it's not in our favor. And man, Masai Ujiri, I hold so much respect in him, but he like his credibility is taking a hit in this offseason because you have the botched job of, I think Gary Trent Jr. should have been already traded this past, like, way back months ago during the deadline. That didn't happen, but he actually opted in. The fact he's still on the roster confuses me. The fact that OG Anunoby, I think he's going to be leaving. The fact he's still there. The fact that we know what the plan is. This organization wants to build around Scotty Barnes. This team is not going to go far, even if they somehow make the playoffs. They're not. They don't have a Jimmy Butler on this team to make that low seed run. They don't have a bona fide superstar on this team to be higher than what we expect. This team is going to be stuck, as we love talking about on this show. Say it with me, guys, viewers, purgatory. And that is the worst place to be stuck in. I'm extremely down on the Raptors after this offseason.
Yeah, I'm personally just confused on their direction and what's going on there, because he doesn't want to trade these guys. Obviously, they'll put out reports that, like, they're interested in trading him. They'll put him out in, like, trade rumors. But end of the day, if you're asking for what Masai Ujiri is asking for, you're just kind of saying it for show, but you're not really looking to trade him. So if you're not looking to trade him, in what ways are you trying to make the team better to try to compete now? Because you lost Fred VanVleet. You really didn't add anybody else to make your team better when clearly your team isn't good enough now. So it's confusing on that part. But, I mean, they're just a disaster. Like Chris said, they're probably going to lose Siakam or OG or both for literally nothing, like they lost Fred VanVleet. So it's going to be, I don't know how that's going to work out for them. I don't know if they'll eventually change their mind or whatever the case may be. But I definitely think, in my opinion, that Masai Ujiri is overrated. I know the last few years, since that kind of Kawhi thing, he's been praised for, like, being one of the best GMs in the league. But, I mean, now that I look at it and the way he's kind of operating post-Kawhi, it seems like Kawhi made the Raptors more than Masai Ujiri did. Sure, he has a couple good finds in the draft, but just the way he operates his team post-Kawhi, it's mind-boggling how he is still viewed so highly. I don't know what the next move is for them. I would blow it up and trade Siakam and OG, because I don't see them as superstar caliber players that could kind of lead a team. Or you figure out a way to go all in and trade for the next available, like, star, whatever the case may be. Because I think if you add, I don't know who's going to be available next, but if you add another star there without giving up Siakam or OG, I think that's a very viable team. But it just doesn't seem like he'd even be willing to do that. It just seems like Masai Ujiri would offer, like, a bunch of second-round picks and expect to be getting a superstar in return. So, I don't know. We'll see where they go. I don't think anything will happen this offseason, but interested to see next offseason when they're kind of a year away from losing Siakam or OG. The pressure will kind of be on then, but I'm extremely confused by what they're doing, and I definitely think that Masai Ujiri is extremely overrated.
I think DeAndre Hunter and Scotty Barnes is a solid, like, core foundation to, like, build upon too. Like, I just don't get it. Also,
I would understand, my bad, Chris. I would understand it more if he was asking for a different piece, because AJ Griffin, Scotty Barnes, and DeAndre Hunter, there's a lot of positional redundancy there.
sure.
I would understand if you're maybe trying to swap out either Griffin or Hunter with, like Kobe Buffkin is on the Hawks. Kobe Buffkin was a scorer in college and he's a guard. I would understand it if the report was the Raptors would like to swap out one of those two with a different player from the Hawks team. I get that, but we're not even hearing that. We're just hearing that they keep asking for more, more, and more. It's like, no, like, dude, that's not how it works. What are you, 5? You just ask for more as you get? Like, no.
Also, I just saw this. Freaking Gary Trent Jr. is an unrestricted free agent next year.
Yeah.
Like, he exercised his player option, and he's definitely gone. There's no shot he's staying with the Raptors. I could even actually see him being traded mid-season, by the way, before the trade deadline. So, I don't know what this team's doing. I don't care. They're, in the Atlantic Division with the Knicks, so whatever. The more they fuck up, the better it is for us. It's a team I have to worry about less. Okay, like, I don't know. Forget the Raptors. No more talking about them. I'm done with them. Let's see here. Okay, before we get into like the last two teams that we have to talk about because there's players that requested trades, fellas, I want to talk about the Indiana Pacers. And I don't think it's it is. I don't think it's Pacers fans. I think it's more so Haliburton fans. Like, I like Haliburton a lot. I think he's like, obviously he's an all-star. He is, I think, one of the best guards in the East. I think, and I hate that people make me do this. People on Twitter, and maybe this is why I have to like stay off Twitter. I'm not calling it X. People on Twitter, like, you're gonna make me like not enjoy Halliburton as much now because the hype has now
Yep.
ascended into like gargantuan levels.
I've been saying this for years.
What are we doing here? Why? Can we calm down, bro? Like, what is... Bro, I understand he made the All-Star game. He just got paid. Congrats. Get your money. You're in Indiana, so, I mean, you want as much money as possible. If you want to live in that dump, you're going to have to, like, pay me as much as, like, as much as you can. Who the fuck wants to live in Indiana? But why are we acting like he's the second coming of Christ? I don't understand. Bro, now I will be watching carefully because if the Pacers don't make the playoffs, because apparently the addition of Obi Toppin has transcended them to, like, Eastern Conference semifinals minimum, apparently. I don't understand. So now I will be watching closely. I will be monitoring Tyrese Haliburton closely. And if this team, because of the hype that Haliburton's been getting, if this team does not reach the playoffs, playoffs. I don't give a fuck about the play-in. Playoffs. I mean, if you don't make the play-in, that's it. We're done here. The conversation's over. But if you make the playoffs, then I do not want to hear about Tyrese Haliburton until y'all make the playoffs. Because like, what are we doing? It's unbelievable now. He hasn't done anything. Like, yeah, he made the All-Star game, props. That is a feat. That is an accomplishment. But, like, when you look at the totality of it, bro, the fact that people are, like, putting him on this pedestal, realistically, what has he done? What has he done? I'm sorry, maybe, like people, I hate people, man. They make me dislike players that I want to root for because he seems like a really good personality. He looks like a decent person, too. I think he is a perfect face of the franchise for the Indiana Pacers. I think he's the perfect guy to kind of, rebuild around, right? Especially for them. Like, they got their guard in a trade that ended up working for both them and the Kings. I was like, okay, their rebuild is going to be a little bit quicker now because they have their guy. But my God, the quickness that we are just, the pace that we're at in terms of just like moving him up the pedestal of just like best guards like ever. Like, apparently he's the next Jason Kidd. I'm like, guys, easy. I think he'll get there eventually, but calm down. He's not there yet. I'm seeing a lot of people saying he's better than Brunson. No, he's not. No, he is not. I'm sorry. Yeah, guys, I don't know. What do we make of the Tyrese Haliburton hype? What do we make of the Pacers stealing? Because they did make some moves. They signed Bruce Brown. They added Obi Toppin for virtually nothing. The roster construction is decent. I do think they have decent supporting pieces around Tyrese Haliburton that could complement him. It seems that, Miles Turner is there to stay. It seems like Buddy Hield is there to stay. So I think they're going to be going with this team. They're going to probably be aiming for the playoffs. So what do we make of the Haliburton hype? What do we make of the Pacers this upcoming season? Dame, let me start off with you.
I'm definitely on your side with this. I do think Tyrese Haliburton is a great. He's a very good player.
Yeah.
I wanted the Knicks to draft him during that draft. That's who I wanted to take over Obi, but they didn't. But regardless, he was an all-star. But I mean, how much of him being an all-star was the fact that he was in the East compared to the West? If he was in the West, I don't think he makes it. It's just the fact that the East was so weak. When it comes to all-stars, that I think he kind of got in because of that. Still a great player, I don't know where his potential is. Jason Kidd, I think, is an extreme stretch. Something that really concerned me is when he went on the Paul George podcast and he said how the playoffs slows down and he doesn't know how to slow down. Like, I don't know if that's your franchise player and someone
Yep,
you
yep.
expect you to kind of lead your team to win in the playoffs. That's not really something I'd to like. It's not something I like to hear from my franchise player that he doesn't know how to play slow, which you need to win in the playoffs. So other than that, I mean, the Pacers, I have no expectations for them. I think they massively overplayed Bruce Brown for a couple hustle plays and a couple offensive rebounds. I mean, $20+ million is absolutely ridiculous. It makes no sense to me. They obviously got Obi Toppin for free, but I mean, Obi Toppin isn't kind of a game changer. He's a good player, a good role player to have seventh, eighth man, but he's not like a guy that's going to change your team from, I guess, a bubble team to like the fifth or sixth seed. So I really personally don't have much expectations for the Pacers. It's more so the fact be like you said, looking at Tyrese Haliburton a lot closely. But for the Pacers, I mean, I don't think they're a good team. Uh, Maybe because they're in the East, they'll be kind of playing for that play-in game, that play-in seed there. But other than that, I view them as no threat to any real playoff team in the East. I think they're more. I think they're closer to being at the bottom half of the East than the top half. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're a young team. They obviously have a lot of room to grow, and maybe years to come they'll be something. They'll be more of a threat. But this upcoming season, I have no expectations for them.
By the way, I don't know about you. I mean, look, I watched the Pacers play like 3 times a year because they play the Knicks 3 times a year or something. There's something about like the aura of their like stadium or their arena that makes it feel like I'm watching a game in the early 2000s. I don't know what it is. Like it seems so lifeless in in like the Pacers arena for some reason. I don't know. It's like very smoke filled type shit. They need a couple changes, a little some aesthetic changes that team So, but again, it's Indiana. I don't give a fuck. Jurg,
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I have been saying this for years about stars, especially in the NBA. We elevate and we prematurely ascend these guys early, and the, I bring this back to NBA social media. Oh, great, we're gonna be really popular there after this one, boys. But it's like people have an addiction of they want to be known as, well, I was the one that said that this guy was gonna be really good, so he's really good. Like all these people that are jumping on the Tyrese Haliburton bandwagon before, and like you said, Chris, like we like Tyrese Haliburton. He's a double-digit assist guy. He's a scorer. He's a good face of a franchise as like one of the pillars. I don't think he could be the best player on a championship team, but I think he could be your second or third guy. But the problem is that everyone always elevates these guys to a higher level than what they really are. Remember after Jason Tatum's rookie season, that shock run of making the conference finals, and then the next season he struggled a bit in year two, and then they lost early in the playoffs, and it's like, oh, is Jason Tatum really? Is he really all that good? Remember, like at year two of their careers, people were actually having a legitimate conversation. Would you rather Kyle Kuzma or Jason Tatum? Like, have we not learned the lesson to stop overrating guys a few years in? Have we not learned? Have you people not learned? So like
nope.
Tyrese Halliburton is a good player. He's a very good player.
Good to really good sometimes.
Yes, good to really good. But he is not a bona fide star. He has not had multiple seasons in a row, which that used to be the requirement. You need to prove it multiple times in a row. I consider this like with Jalen Hurts in football. Yes, Jalen Hurts just had his first MVP caliber season, like that he was a top 10 quarterback. He needs to do it again, and then again, and then again before we could definitively, confidently say he is top whatever in the league. It's the same thing now with Tyrese Haliburton and a lot of other guys in the league. We're just specifically focusing on Haliburton because we're talking about the Pacers here. Like he needs to make the All-Star team again, and then he needs to make it again, and he needs to lead the Pacers to the playoffs. Like you said, Chris and Dame, playoffs, not play-in. And this Pacers team to me just doesn't scream that they are above a play-in team at this moment. They would not challenge the Bucks in a best of 7. They would not challenge the 76ers. They would not challenge the Celtics. I mean, the Cavs are schmucks, so maybe them. But I as of now, I say this as of now, I think the Knicks would probably beat them in a 7-game series, and I think the Heat would beat them in a 7-game series. You do not deserve in any way, shape, or form to be in that upper echelon of the East. You need to prove it. I think that's ultimately it at the end of the day. I think this Pacers team, like, they made a couple solid moves. They focused on improving the roster and improving their starting five. I did like the Bruce Brown signing. I know Dame's big thing was the AAV, but it's only 2 years. It's not like they signed him to a 4 or 5 year deal. It's only 2 years at that cap hit, which is more than manageable. And you bring in a guy that's going to double digit score, grab rebounds, 3-point, do the little things for that team, which I think is what they need. They need that veteran presence. Obi Toppin, I'm not the biggest fan of him personally. Chris very much knows this. I don't think he could play a lick of defense worth
He's
anything.
ass, bro.
But Miles Turner is as good of a cleanup defensive center as you can have as a teammate. Probably top 5 in the league in terms of that regard, up there with like Robert Williams and Bam in that echelon. So I think this is a very good team. I think they should comfortably be a play-in team this season. They should be 8th or 9th seed. They should be a play-in team. If they miss the play-in, or if they're the 10th seed, we have a problem with the Indiana Pacers organization and player structure, because this team needs to start having some success soon. Because eventually there's going to be that dip where some of the top teams in the East fall and some of the lower teams have to rise up. And if you are not performing as well as you should at this juncture, you have no shot with this core at any time within the next year or two. So get it together.
Yeah. I mean, this podcast is always looking for new targets, and Haliburton, you're on the dartboard right now, bro. You're on the dartboard, and we're gonna be throwing those darts soon. So,
And
all right,
we've been right about a good amount of those targets in the
yeah.
past. So
So, I mean, if you could prove us wrong, that's an impressive feat within itself. Okay, we talked about the Rockets before they made moves. Did we talk about like them after
no.
free agency? Okay,
Mm.
even if we do, look, dimension season's coming, but let's talk about the Rockets. It's difficult to constitute them as a loser, because they got better technically, you know. So yeah, like I don't know if they're. I guess they're a winner by default because they got better. But all right. So here we go. Fred VanVleet. Believe what was the contract he got? It was like 3 years,
3 years, 120 something.
Yeah, so it was like 40 something million per year for Fred VanVleet. Originally, it was, I believe, what the rumor mill was that he was getting like 2 years, 82 million. And I was like, all right, 2 years, not whatever. It's 40 million for Fred VanVleet's crazy. Maybe not in the CBA, but I still think he's one of the most overrated players in the NBA. But if a team's going to overpay for him, it would be the Rockets. And he got 40 million. Props to him. Won undrafted. He won an NBA championship. Now he's getting some generational wealth. So props to him. He ended up getting 3 years, 120 million. I think his age. I mean, but he's represented by Clutch, so I'm not surprised he got his money. But I believe that third year might have been him and Clutch kind of like saying like, "Yo, if we're not going to sign with you unless we get the third year." I don't necessarily know who they would have been bidding against. I think the Raptors made a strong push at the end. I don't know what that means, strong push at the end. I just think they were just interested in re-signing him. I think Fred VanVleet and Clutch were using the Raptors as leverage. I don't think they wanted to go back. I don't think he wanted to go back. So I just think they kind of used a desperate and poor franchise to their advantage. Poor and desperate franchise being the Rockets, and they're just like, give us a third year, we're not signing. So they did it. So they get Fred VanVleet, they get their guard, they get him to pair with Jalen Green. Who did they get? They got one of the Thompson twins in the draft. They were actually very active in free agency, because I don't want to talk about the main event yet, by the way, because we'll talk about him. So they got Amon Thompson, they got Cam Whitmore, who dropped in the draft. Obviously Fred VanVleet. They got they signed Jeff Green and they signed Jock Landale. So we talked about them desperately needing some very good veterans to keep these youngins like level-headed, because this is a losing franchise. Their young players only know losing, and it was this very immature team. We're huge fans of Sengun, so they have him. Jabari Smith Jr. needs some growing up. There's potential there, and of course you have like your franchise star in Jalen Green. So I think they did a decent job in balancing good veterans, smart veterans, with immature young players who have talent, right? So technically they got better. I don't necessarily know what the ceiling for the Rockets would be. Obviously they're shooting for the playoffs this year. I think that would be a W for them if they made the playoffs. Play in, I think, is a little bit more realistic. But again, if you make the playoffs, then that's a W for them. They're not going past the first round, if anything, though. So, yeah. I guess Fred VanVleet, for 3 years. It's not 4. He's a good player. Overrated, but he's a good player. So, like, that's your backcourt for the future, him and Jalen Green. I think a large contingent on them like being somewhat successful in the future is Jalen Green reaching that next level, which I think he's capable of doing, but it's kind of up to him. So Jurg just mentioned that the third year for Fred and Fleet is a team option, Jurg.
Yep.
Okay,
I
so that
looked
all
it up
right
on
now that
Spotrac. It's a team option.
okay, so that's changes everything technically because you know they're in control of that third year, their final year. So 2 years guaranteed. I think they'll exercise it anyway. I don't think they would like just let Fred VanVleet go, especially if they see results. Who's their owner? Is it Fertitta?
Yeah, Tillman
Yeah,
Fertitta.
he's not a good owner. I think he's whatever. If he sees results and he sees like Fred VanVleet's a big reason for that, he's gonna have no problem bringing him back. So yeah, team option, but I think they'll bring him back. Dylan Brooks. That was the one name that we kind of put off to the side for a specific reason. So 4 years, $80 million. I think it was a little bit more than that actually, but it was 80 plus million for 4 years, 20 plus million a year. He was linked to the Rockets before he actually signed to them. Did not think he would be getting this much money. My issue is, again, but it's not a smart organization. Who are they bidding against? 4 years, 86 million for Dylan Brooks. Who are you bidding against, bro? Like, who is bidding that much? Like, who's offering Dylan Brooks that much money? Like, Dylan Brooks and his agent would be like, well, this is what we want. If not, then we're not signing there. Okay, don't. Where else are you going to go? Bro, what? For Dylan Brooks? I don't know. I get, again, like, there's other players that you could have gone after, bro. I don't understand why Dylan Brooks is like a make or break for them. It's just, I guess, like, he's a quote unquote culture guy. I think that phrase is being thrown around way too much. But like, I would have another, like, Dylan Brooks. What culture guy, bro? Everyone hates him. Who the fuck respects Dylan Brooks? But whatever. I guess defense and all that stuff. He clearly is the villain of the NBA. He's getting booed by Canada, by the way, his own country. So, fellas, what do we make of the Rockets' offseason moves? Specifically, Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks. Obviously, Dylan Brooks is the main event here because it's the most to talk about. But they, Jacques Landale. It was $8 million, $32 million for 4 years. That was a little bit of an overpay. But Jacques Landale, Jeff Green. They did. I think they got better. That's which I think was the ultimate goal for them. But yeah, what do we make of the Rockets' moves this offseason? Winner or loser? Jurg, let me start off with you.
Can't we just put them in the they did stuff category and be
Yeah,
done with it?
just to make it fun.
Because they do not, these are not the moves of a winner, but I can't technically call them a loser.
Yep.
This is the typical case of team that was really bad last season and they need to overvalue guys based off what the market has for them in order to get them to sign with the team. This is a textbook thing that teams have been doing for years. Again, I repeat what I said earlier on the show. Have you people not learned what this stuff is like? Bad teams have to pay guys more money in order to get them. Case in point, Fred VanVleet. Case in point, Dylan Brooks. Case in point, Jock probably would have gone there no matter what. But they just chose to pay him $8 million. That's more of a Rockets thing than anything else. Like you said, Chris, it was kind of a weird offseason because like they coupled all these signings with a couple trades of guys. Like they traded away Kenyon Martin Jr. to the LA Clippers. They traded Ty Washington and Usman Garuba to the Atlanta Hawks for just like I think a second round pick. So they really made it clear that they wanted to get a little bit older on this team with just a couple more veterans to surround their, I guess you could call it a core of guys. Again, I've said it before on this pod. I'll say it again. Aside from Şengün, I'm not a fan of anybody else in that young core definitively at this moment. And I just think this team, they got some veteran leadership so that Ime Udoka doesn't absolutely lose his mind and, look to his staff members to give him, stress relief again like he did in Boston. That being said, I think when it comes to the Houston Rockets, like if you talk about what your expectations are, like more than 22 wins, but I don't think this team deserves to be a play-in team. Look at the teams that were play-in teams from last season. Just look at 7 through 10. It was the Lakers, the Timberwolves, the Thunder, and the Pelicans. Even the 11th seed last season was the Dallas Mavericks. The Houston Rockets do not have a single individual player that would surpass any of those guys. Heck, the only team of those 5 I just listed, the only team that Şengün, and I'm saying him specifically because, he's the gem of the Rockets, there's only one of those teams that he would be the second option for. The rest of them, he would be the third option. So I think the Rockets, like, yes, they got better, but it's not going to amount to anything crazy. Like, okay, you're going to go, what, 30-52 this season? 32-50? I guess, yeah, that is better than 22-60, but it's still not groundbreaking. At the end of the day, this season is wholly based off of will Jabari Smith Jr. and Jalen Green prove to be more than what they have showed us so far. And those are two massive ifs on this team. And again, if you're Ime Udoka, I'm talking to the GM every day. I don't think this Rockets core is going to stay as long as most people would think. I think this is going to be a team that's going to be trying to shop for one of the next big stars that wants to be traded away, and they have the young pieces to do so. Because even if we don't think these guys will do great here, that doesn't mean they can't be traded somewhere else for a bigger name in the future. And then you have an Alfred Şengün with a Fred VanVleet with another star player in there. I think that's what Houston is looking at. I don't see this team as constructed winning more than 32 games at most next season.
Yeah, like you kind of mentioned in the beginning, they're not. You can't view them as losers, but I would view them as winners either because these are moves that kind of shift the needle. But personally, from my point of view, I do like what they did because they kind of didn't lock themselves into crazy long bad contract. Outside the Dylan Brooks one, to me, is a little too long and bad. I'd rather, if you had to give me a choice to pay Dylan Brooks that contract or let him play for the veteran minimum, I'd just let him go. I would literally rather not have him on my team than pay him anything. So the fact that they gave him 4 for 86, which goes back to what Chris said, I don't know who in the world they were even competing against with this offer because there was rumors about him even going to play in China because he'd have no interest around the league. So for him to get $22-ish million per year for 4 years too, it's not like it was a 2-year deal like Jurg mentioned with Bruce Brown. Although it was a high AAV, it was kind of this 2 years is short term. You kind of get off your books quick. With Dylan Brooks, you're locked in for 4 years, no options or whatever the case may be. And compared to Fred VanVleet, who is an NBA champion, who has a good reputation for being a good team leader and a winning kind of player, which is something that the Rockets need. Everyone around the league talks about they kind of need a whole culture shift and a rebuild there. I think bringing a guy Fred VanVleet, especially at the point guard position, kind of your leader on the floor and off the floor, is going to do great things for the young players there and kind of that culture and locker room. So I gotta get it was massive overpay. Don't get me wrong, $43 million for Fred VanVleet is ridiculous, but it's essentially for 2 years because 30 years is a team option. And if they really think that they're going all in, after that second year, they're not going to pick up that option. They're going to go for they're going to use that money for obviously someone that could take them over the hump. So it's essentially a 2-year deal, which is completely okay. But like I said, the Dylan Brooks one just doesn't make sense to me, and I just think they had an offseason where they did get better. They did kind of try to shift that culture there with compared to what they had in the past with these young immature guys that kind of just want to score the ball and don't know how to play winning basketball. So yeah, I like what they did. They didn't put themselves in a position where they're not going to have flexibility going forward in the future, which for young teams is extremely crucial to have that flexibility, whether it's draft picks or cap space. So I do like what they did, but obviously you can't look at that and be like, oh my God, the Rockets are going to be some crazy great team next year. But yeah, I do like what they did, for their future.
Okay, some parity in that response. Okay, let's move on to the final players to talk about, and I guess it could lead to the teams that they're on. James Harden and Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard, we kind of made up the rule that we won't talk about him until he gets traded, but this was announced early in July that he officially requested the trade. It is now about to be middle of August, actually. So a month in, there hasn't been any, updates. We all know he wants Miami. Apparently the Blazers don't like Miami's offer. There were rumors that a third team needs to be involved to take Tyler Hero's contract. Apparently the Blazers aren't, rushing to trade Damian Lillard to the Miami Heat. There's always, there was also that talk of, Damian Lillard, not wanting, he won't put in 100% to a team that does trade him. He won't give it his all, for lack of a better phrase. I'm paraphrasing at the moment, but It just basically like it's Miami or nowhere else for him. So that's how Damian Lillard views it. Blazers don't like their offer. Blazers are standing put right now. Um, so that I really don't know the next chapter of the Damian Lillard trade saga because I could see this because it's kind of gone to August. I could see this kind of bleeding its training camp. Like I could see I could see Damian Lillard being on the Blazers by the start of training camp. I really could. I do think eventually he'll get traded, but I mean the Blazers are in no rush. Like, and I don't see any evidence that they'll trade him. That they will trade him, anytime soon. To be honest, so I don't know a better offer than they'll get. There has been really confirmed reports about what offers they do have. I know there's been like Miami Heat. It's like a plethora of first round picks. Um, their first round pick. Who was their first round pick? Jurg? What was his name?
This year,
Jaquez? Yeah.
Jaime Jaquez.
Jaime Jaquez. Nikola Jovic. I think Kyle Lowry for salary dump. They would reroute Tyler Hero.
Which multiple teams have been, willing to do so.
Yeah. So it's like a bunch of like moving pieces. Nothing's been completely confirmed other than the fact that Damian Lillard wants Miami. And if he ends up going to Miami, then all of this was for nothing. It's just a waste of time. If the Blazers have the balls to trade him to another team, I'll be genuinely surprised. And I'll actually have a little bit more respect for them if they do that. But I can't see another team. The only team I could see him, the only team I could have seen him like fitting well with, even though it would only be for a year, that could compete with him. That I think like I know he doesn't want to go there, but I do think the fit would be perfect. It was going to be the Boston Celtics. Like I thought him in Boston would have been perfect. Him and Tatum obviously would have had to trade Brown. I feel like, but now Brown re-signed for just. I mean, that's another discussion in itself. He re-signs for generational wealth, but I thought him and Boston would have been decent, I know it would have been for a year, but they would have been heavy favorites in my book to win the NBA championship if he ended up going there. But they ended up re-signing Jaylen Brown. I don't think he goes there anymore. He's made it vehemently clear. He's made it extremely clear that he doesn't want to be there. I don't blame him who wants to go to Boston. But, guys, that's the whole thing with Damian Lillard. The other chapter in NBA trade talks that we'll talk about is James Harden. I don't know what the market is for James Harden. I think it's pretty dry at the moment. I think, the verdict is out on James Harden. Like, I know he'll be up there when it's all said and done, but I think, like, he is one of the biggest losers in the NBA. The biggest loser of a winner, I guess, is, like, I don't know. Like, I know he's won. I know he has a bunch of accolades. He'll be up there. He'll be an NBA Hall of Famer down the line. I just never liked Harden. I think he's a piece of shit. I think the way he conducts himself is just awful. But he has fans. I think he's past his prime. That doesn't show up in the playoffs thing. I think for a bit, like a small part of me, like a few years ago, thought that narrative was slightly overblown. I'm 100% on it now. He doesn't show up in the playoffs, and now he just doesn't care. Like, he just forces trades when it's not up to him. I just think he wants to, like, hoop. Like, I think he really does want to hoop in Houston and not care and not have any pressure on him. Like, he just wants to, like, ball out and just, like, not give a shit about winning. Like, that's just him. I think the only team realistically that's been reported that I do think could trade for him, that will trade for him, is the Los Angeles Clippers, which just makes sense. Harden at the Clippers, just a match made in heaven. Two entities that can't get it done. So I don't know. The market's dry for him. I do think Daryl Morey likes to play high ball. I think he'll want the best offer. I just don't know what the best offer will be, man. I think the best offer will be what the Clippers give you because no one else wants him. So I don't care. I hate James Harden. I think he's just an unlikable player to me, and I don't know. I don't know how he still has fans, to be honest. Even his style of play is just so fucking annoying to watch. So, fellas,
Jeff Teague's apparently a big James Harden fan.
I don't give a fuck about Jeff Teague. He's had his podcast is actually funny. I've actually it's made me laugh. He's actually had some funny stories on there. But then shit like that comes out, like how he's better than Dwayne Wade. And I'm just because apparently kids like to emulate James Harden at the park more than Dwayne Wade
because that matters so much in all-time legacy.
First of all, that's not even like a compliment. I hate people who try to emulate James Harden. Like I play basketball in parks and indoors, and I see people who try to play James Harden, and it's annoying. Like it doesn't work. It's annoying for the people to play with because you just watch a guy dribble the ball 50
They don't do anything with the Rock.
They don't do anything. You're not James Harden. And even if you were, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, and also, I haven't played ball at a park in a while, but like, I don't remember people emulating James Harden as much. I don't know. Again, if anyone has James Harden ahead of Dwayne Wade in their like all-time shooting guard rankings, bro, you belong in a rehabilitation center. Stop it right now.
If we need any more proof that not every professional athlete actually knows what the hell they were talking about, even though they played the sport, Jeff Teague is a prime example of that.
What a way to like, I was like, this podcast is money right now. It's fucking hilarious. He has great stories.
Ruin any credibility he has.
And then it just went down the drain. And I'm like, of course. So, fellas, these are the two stories that have been dominating the NBA offseason. These are the two marquee players that want out. I do think eventually they'll both get traded. I just don't know when. Jurg, let me start off with you because you're the Miami Heat fan, and we're in a stalemate right now. So your team's kind of stuck in the mud. I think your team needs this to happen, actually.
Oh, for sure.
So go ahead, my son.
Yeah, I will say this. We are losers of the offseason ultimately.
So far.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm not saying that we were going to keep these guys anyway, but we did lose Max Strus. We did lose Gabe Vincent. We lost a couple guys. And there could have been, there was an opportunity here over the last couple weeks for the Heat to still add, like, maybe a role player or two. But this team the entire time has planned on Lillard is going to be made available, which he technically is, and that he's going to be in Miami, which, for all intents and purposes, he should be. I have a lot of people that I have a lot of things to say about here, and I will be as quick as possible to allow my compatriots here to speak. For the Portland Trailblazers, if there is a better offer than us, then fucking take that offer then. Because all this talk I hear from NBA Twitter and these media pundits that think they know a fucking thing of what they are speaking about and not being complete tools for the Portland Trailblazers that act like they are giving us real news when in reality it is just a full campaign for the Blazers to continue to squeeze more from this thing. Like, it is utterly, utterly, utterly ridiculous. If there is a better offer than what Miami has, then take the fucking offer. If there isn't, stop fucking pretending. The fact that at one point earlier in the offseason, the audacity, the gall that some people were trying to add the San Antonio Spurs and other teams in this conversation, like they were even actually conversing with Portland, is absurd because those teams do not match a goddamn timeline for what Lillard should be going to. They don't. This utter ridiculousness that now suddenly the Miami Heat want to make this trade, and now everyone is suddenly against Damian Lillard. Oh, now he's running from it. Now he's not loyal to this organization anymore. Now all the criticism, all the thing from the woodworks that you fucking parasites on NBA Twitter are. I've made myself an enemy on NBA Twitter at this point, but I don't care because all of you people who for years have told and said that Dame can leave and he could go wherever he wants and you would be cool with it. Suddenly he wants to go to the Miami Heat, and it's a problem with you. Isn't that funny? At this point, obviously I want him on my team, but I just want this BS saga to end. Like, just do the damn deed. Like, if you're Dame and you actually want to be traded at this point, then bro, you need to go full force and be a complete shithead with it. You need to call up James Harden and ask him for his fat suit. You got to call up Anthony Davis and see the method acting classes he takes whenever he fakes an injury compared to when he's actually hurt. He's kind of mastered that at this point. We never really know, but there's that. Like, you need to make a big deal within the organization internally. Like, look, we're gonna and the Portland Trailblazers themselves, C tier organization, maybe even D tier. The fact that reports have even come out that they are not even picking up any of the Miami Heat's phone calls when Miami have internally been ramping up the offer and have planned to put bigger and better offers out there is an absolute disgrace of an organization not willing to do business with somebody else. And it just goes to show you how fucking C tier, D tier they have been, and that they have never deserved Damian Lillard in the first place. The only reason he is still there is because that they've been able to offer him the most money. And now that he can actually go somewhere else to win, it suddenly becomes a problem. Now that they have said for years, oh, we will do what's right with Damian Lillard, they don't want to do what's right with Damian Lillard. Fuck off, you fake organization. You are D tier. In the words of I wish I could figure out a way to do this, but you are a C-class organization with a D-class general manager, a fucking jamoke that's running things that acts like he has any leverage in this whatsoever. I'm like, in terms of this, done with this organization, done with social media, done with pundits. Just make the deal. If we don't have the best deal, fine, I will deal with that internally as a Heat fan. If there are so many other better deals, make the fucking deal. But why have you not yet? Because there isn't. Because this is just a PR campaign. If I want shitty PR campaigns, I would get into politics and learn that. I don't want that in my NBA sports. Get out of here. Make the deal or don't. Keep him or trade him. Enough. Joke of an organization. Now, James Harden. I'm with you, Chris. I think the Clippers are really the only realistic team that could trade for him. I think they have really the only team that have expressed interest aside from the Rockets. And it really comes down to, is James Harden want the zero stress whatsoever of being with the Rockets, or is he willing to be with the Clippers, a team that actually has expectations? Paul George and Kawhi have allegedly given the Clippers internally the green light to go for James Harden, which means something when your stars want that, but at the same time, they're trying to be smart with it. I think I saw a report, this was weeks back, but like the big sticking point in the early trade talks was the 76ers want Terrence Mann, and the Clippers don't really want to give him up, which should really just go to show you what James Harden value is at this point in his NBA career, that Terrence Mann is what's supposed to be stopping the deal. But yeah, I think ultimately Harden will be dealt. I think Dame will be dealt too, in my rant there. I think both of them will get dealt. I just think, like you said, Chris, NBA doesn't start until October. These guys could very much get dealt at some point in September. I don't see an end coming anytime soon. And now that I've said that, that's totally going to happen after we record this episode. So there's that.
So starting with Damian Lillard, I do think it's just kind of like, I don't know what they're doing. Like, it's just inevitable that this deal is going to be made at some point. I know a report came out that Damian Lillard, if he isn't traded, he's still going to report to training camp. I think that's stupid. I think he should just sit out until he's traded and kind of put the pressure on them. I mean, at this point, you kind of know what you're going to get and what you're not going to get. I'm sure other teams have called, and why would the Blazers not listen? And they probably know that they can't get anything better than what the Heat are offering, because the other teams know that Damian Lillard only wants to be a Heat. So why would they offer a nice big package for him when they know he's not going to be happy? So I do think eventually, hopefully soon, that he is going to get dealt so we can get rid of that drama. On the other hand, though, I don't think James Harden will be traded. I think somehow, some way, they'll repair that relationship or kind of let it run for another year, because I feel like Daryl Morey and the Sixers, like management, know that they're kind of running on their last years of Embiid's prime, and they kind of got to maximize it, whether it's his prime at the Sixers or his prime in general, because he's not going to have a long career, clearly. He's injured every single year. And they know that there already is rumors flying around that he might request to be out or to be traded out, or whatever case may be. So I think in their minds, why would they trade James Harden if he might give them the best chance to win now? While they look towards the future and try to get younger, get draft picks or whatever they could get from the Clippers. None of them are going to be a guy James Harden can be for that team. They're as they should. I mean, they should just go all in for the next year or two, whatever, however long they think Embiid's going to be there. Because once you lose Embiid, I mean, Maxi's not Embiid, Maxi's not James Harden, Maxi's not a guy that's going to lead your franchise going forward. So I feel like they should, and I think this is what they will end up doing, is just keeping James Harden, being like, listen, you're just going to play here, play throughout your contract. If you want to leave, you leave in free agency, because we're going all for it now, and we want to maximize what we have in Embiid while he is here and while he is still playing in the NBA and playing for the Sixers.
Well. Yeah. Solid points brought up from both of you. Yeah, like that whole report of like Damian Lillard, like if he gets traded to another team that's not the Heat, and him just like kind of like holding out, and him not like putting in 100% and just not like, giving his all to that team that trades for him. I think it's different. I think it's false, because like that'll be very like the opposite of like Damian Lillard's character. I feel like I don't see that. I don't see like that, matching his personality trait. I don't like, he's not a bitch like that. Like Damian Lillard will actually put in work. Like I think he'll, whoever he gets traded to, like he'll actually like show up and like still play the way he plays, man. I don't think like he'll like half-ass it. It just doesn't seem like his personality. Doesn't seem like his character. Yeah, I think that'll do it for this week. Wow. Just rants everywhere, discussions, all that stuff. Just teams, NBA Twitter getting our blood boiled, man. Not good. You got Jurg over here having a heart attack. So, thanks a lot, NBA Twitter. Jurg, can they find us on the socials?
Guys, another fantastic episode in the books, and if you want to continue to find us and follow us, please get to us on Instagram at somewhat.sports for all the latest updates when it comes to the program itself. Follow us on there. We always post up stories when the newest episodes are out, and we love posting stuff in terms of updates on, little games that we do, if we make selections, in terms of award predictions, standings prediction, etc. And very, very soon, as the NFL season starts, we do our weekly predictions here at the Somewhat Sports Podcast in the third annual Somewhat Sports Podcast NFL predictions game. That's going to be a fun thing to see weekly, to say the very least. And if you want to continue to keep up with this amazing program in and of itself, make sure you find us, as you continue to do so, on YouTube and Spotify, Somewhat Spaced in Sports on both of those platforms. Like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. 5 stars. Follow us on Spotify. Please let us know in the comments, what do you want more of? Do you want more fun stuff like we did last week when we bring on bars and we could interact with that? Any guests that we can bring on? Are there any YouTubers that you guys are a fan of that maybe we can get in contact? Please let us know. And topics that you want us to discuss and games you want us to play, please let us know. I've said this many, many a times. Podcast by the people, for the people. As we are getting into the final month or so of our summer, I think it's been a pretty fun and good summer so far. Please continue to ride this out with us as we head towards a fantastic fall here at the end of the Somewhat Sports summer of 2023.
Beautifully put, as always, Jurg. To all listeners listening, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. Jurg and Dame, phenomenal job as always. And until next time, peace.